Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. If you listened to last week's show, you know that this is part 2 of my interview with Leslie Charles, renowned author and speaker and seminar leader, and just about everything else, a person who lives so authentically, always at the cutting edge. And Leslie and I are friends for decades from the National Speakers Association, and we have stayed in touch all of these years. And when Leslie wrote me that she has been doing a lot of writing on COVID-19, I said, oh my goodness, I have to have you back on the show. I don't even remember how many times I've had you on the show, Leslie. It must be at least 4 times over the years, right? At least 4 times.
At least, yes.
At least.
It's always been a pleasure, and I'm always amazed at how you and I riff off each other.
Yes.
That's always fun.
It's awesome. It's really awesome. So we tackled in the last show, you called it, and I so agree, a brave conversation about the lack of physical connection and hugs. And I have so many single people in my clinical practice, and they are suffering also very well. So the whole idea of self-erotica, I think, really needs a new framework, plus the idea of self-touching and the idea of self-hugging, as you had instructed. And everybody, you can do it again if you're not driving. Right? Your right hand on your left shoulder and your left hand on your right shoulder, and give yourself a hug and bring it down to your elbows, and even with your hands and your face. And Leslie had come up with the concept and named it herself, hovering. And I told her that there's a whole body of literature and a whole training for therapists called havening. So again, I'm so struck by the similarity of the words. And so that's a whole big piece. How much do we touch ourselves? How much do we love ourselves? How much do we appreciate ourselves? And then we looked at the idea of connection must always involve boundaries to stay connected, and the idea of psychological boundaries as well as physical boundaries. And I just have to say it again, your story of this 4-year-old who was taught at the Montessori school to ask, are you available? And she taught her parents. It's incredible. So the idea, you talked about structure and your four wonderful tips. Oh, well, it's about grief. We lost security, we lost routine, we lost our independence, and we lost our connection. And then, of course, we talked about boundaries at the same time. And so we ended with the concept of the serenity prayer. You know, we cannot control what's out there, but we can control what's in here. So tell us, give us your wisdom for part 2, Leslie Charles.
When we talked about comfort zones, I just kept thinking about the fact that we got pushed way out of our comfort zones. So we are basically in uncharted territory. There's no GPS app for how to navigate COVID. So we're making a whole lot of things up right now. And being able to be self-encouraging is extremely important. Mm-hmm. I'm not good at this. The first time I drove, I think it was almost 3 weeks after the lockdown. The first time I went to the store, mask in my car and, all ready. I got about, 100 feet from my driveway and realized I had not put on my seatbelt.
Uh-huh.
Now that's something I've been doing since the 70s.
Right. I hear you.
And all of a sudden my whole protocol was busted. So if you find
Right.
yourself saying, I'm not good at this, how can you be good at something you've never done before?
Yes.
Now, think of a sport. I play the sport of disc golf, frisbee golf, and I'm always trying to recruit women. And so often they say to me, but I wouldn't be any good, or I'm not any good. Of course you're not, because you haven't done it.
Of course,
So,
it's so weird. Yes.
So I've been practicing what I preach, and recently I started something that I've never done before, and I am painting images on rocks.
Yes.
And it's brand new to me. I keep thinking I am trying to paint the Sistine Chapel, so what I do is way more complex than it should be. I'm learning a lot about the texture of the rocks and how to control acrylic paints and so on and so forth. And I am really having a good time. I also signed up for an improv class.
So let me just, before you continue about the improv, let's just continue with the theme of when we are locked down and we lose our independence, how do we sustain ourselves? Now, some of us are lucky that we can work from home and have our livelihood. And then parents who have their livelihood working from home have also had to educate their children. It's just incredible. But there are a lot of people who are very, very cut off, as you say, with their routine. And so what you're suggesting is to find your own passion, find your own inner joy, your own new hobbies that are doable within this circumstance.
Why not? A lot of people have been baking bread.
Oh, yeah? And then don't they call it the COVID-15?
Yes.
That the average person is gaining 15 pounds. That was my biggest fear. Well, not my biggest, but it was one of my top 5. And luckily I have not. I've been very careful because I want to fit into all of my dress-up clothes when this whole thing is over. And we don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah, we don't.
So, yes. So this improv class, tell us about, sorry I interrupted you. Tell us about the improv class.
Well, it's something I've told myself that I've wanted to do for a few years and just had not found anything local. And we have Michigan State University has the Wharton Center. That's the performance center for Broadway, off-Broadway plays and all kinds of performances. And they are offering a Zoom-based improv class. So I thought, okay, I'm so far out of my comfort zone anyway. I am going to be intimidated, and I'm already intimidated just going to the store. So why not push myself? So next week is my first class. I'm really looking forward to it. What else have I? Oh, yes, the COVID-15.
Yeah.
For me, this is my year of the chips. I have in my possession at this very moment in my kitchen a bag of potato chips and a bag of tortilla chips, both of which the brands I prefer. My philosophy, my stress philosophy is when the chips are down, reach for the chips. And there's
beautiful.
There's another piece to that. If I can laugh at myself, it feels really good. And I know what I'm doing. I've also increased my walking. A Fitbit sort of changed my life. And I've increased my walking from a half hour a day to, then it went to an hour a day, and now I'm at 90 minutes a day. I'll keep it there.
Oh, wow.
Not going any further. I found a woods where I can go and be alone. Nobody goes in there. It's a little muddy, and there's mosquitoes right now, and I don't care. I'm just when I started there in the spring. I didn't even know it existed. It's 15 minutes from me by foot, and I never went down that street before. So it's become my haven, and it's wonderful.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So you're giving yourself your chips and your extra mile walk.
Yes.
Good for you. So this is an allowance. In the last week's show, we were talking about giving ourselves allowance to experience joy, even when we're grieving, and to really create our own sense of what reality is for us, and not manufactured reality or manufactured feelings, what we're supposed to feel. And so you're looking at redesigning your own life. And I know you had written in your literature on COVID, you had, I'm just losing it now. Oh, darn, I just lost it.
Wow. Come back.
Help me out, Leslie. I can't, help me out right now. Say something.
Well, one of the things that I've done for myself is take breathing breaks. I do meditate almost every day, and being able to take a look at where was I before now, because we always make things better. And if I could only get my old life back. Is that the same life where you were complaining about work and relationships?
Yes.
Being unhappy about never having any time for yourself? Oh, excuse me, because that's what I used to hear you say. So you can't get away with hating what's happening now compared to the wonderful stress you had in the past.
Yes. And thank you. I love the breathing breaks. And this is what I say to my clients who are trying to give up smoking. It's not only the nicotine that's so seductive, it's the fact that you have chiseled out 5 minutes a day for yourself, 5 minutes at a time to breathe deeply. And
You are the first person I've heard say that, and that's exactly what I've told people too. It's the deep inhale that we miss so often.
Right.
Part of the ritual. Yes.
And I remembered now what you had written, which of course is so often what I write about, which is the idea of crisis. You know, we look at the two Chinese symbols of crisis. One is danger and the other is opportunity. I don't know, you didn't make reference to the Chinese symbols, but the concept that we have new opportunities and we can redesign, unlearn, and redesign.
Yes, in fact, I think of opportunity and adversity as constant companions.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Well, let me go a little further in this. I wrote a book called Bless Your Stress. It means you're still alive. And in that book, I talk about blessings, blessons. And those are things that happen to us that we didn't want. Those are not, I'm not talking about the worst things in the world, but a friend of mine lost her job. And she ended up with a much better job. I talked with a woman recently who had wanted to be a teacher all her life. She lost her teaching jobs 3 different times in 4 years. So she has been, for the last 30 years, a self-employed photographer. And she absolutely loves it.
Oh, good.
Firings were a blessing for her.
And I love, you are such a wordsmith, Leslie Charles. Bless your stress. I just love, and then I interviewed your friend and co-author, Mimi Donaldson, also on your book, Bless Your Stress. And this one, I absolutely love, Blessings. Oh my word. Those things that are, when I lecture on change management, we have negative change and positive change, and we have involuntary and voluntary change. And of course, the pandemic is involuntary negative change, and which of course is the hardest to cope with. And in all the literature in stress management, when you look at stressors, believe it or not, wonderful things that happen to us also have high numbers, like getting married, getting promoted, moving to a place of your choice, because for human beings, change in and of itself is stressful. Because as you said, no GPS for that, no GPS for that. So when we moved into this negative involuntary change, what do? Well, we turn it around, as you're doing, as I'm doing, as our station manager, Sean Novat, is doing. We're all doing it. And, the old story, how do you make, lemonade from lemons? So I see that you are doing so much in your blessings, and calling it also stretching your comfort zone. So tell us more about that. Oh, and before you do, let me just say we are WHPC 90.3, and this is Dr. Duffy Spencer on Just Relationships, interviewing Leslie Charles, renowned author and member of the National Speakers Association, on how to manage the particular and peculiar and unique and brand new stress of living through a pandemic. Yeah, there we are. Well, we're in historical times, right, Leslie?
Yes, we are, and I'm going to make a really bad pun here. We need to keep it historical and not hysterical. Let's put in a pitch for sense of humor.
Right.
I attended my first funeral on Facebook last month.
Yeah.
And I cleaned up for it.
Yeah.
And it's not like Zoom. And no one could see me. They could tell I was there. I think there was my name or something showed up. But I laughed at myself afterward. I thought, why did I? And it was only, you only have to look good from the waist up. It doesn't matter what you're wearing or anything like that. And I had to laugh at myself afterward and thought, oh yeah, see, I'm not good at this yet. I don't know how to do these things. And it's really important to be able to laugh at yourself. One thing that came to me within the last month, I always make a theme for my years. It's a practice I've been doing since 1995. And this, I decided, was my year of wanderlust, looking for the little wonders and small things that I might walk by, not notice, and so on and so forth. And about 6 weeks ago, recently, I decided, boy, I really picked the wrong year, the wrong theme for this year. Maybe I should call it Wonderbust instead. So I was holding on to that, and all of a sudden something changed. I have this huge rock out in my yard, and one day I found a painted rock on my big rock. And then another one, and this went on for about 3 weeks, and these rocks kept showing up, and there was a name, just a first name, and the year that it had been painted. And finally, I was the Nancy Drew in me really hooked. And I finally figured out who the person was. I have a story that I tell, and I probably will post it on my website at some point. Anyway, I have a new friend, and I have a new hobby now because I too am painting rocks. And I have a photo on my Facebook page of all the rocks that she made and the rocks that I've made so far.
Yes.
And a woman and her daughter walked by the other night. There's a lot of families that walk by. And I said, take any rock you want. They're a gift. And her little 3-year-old daughter chose an owl I had painted. I felt so good. Somebody wanted my painting.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's, you never know.
So my assistant, who is just a godsend to me, and she's working virtually now, she tells me that she paints rocks, and they hide them in her community. They hide them all over the neighborhood. So this is what happened with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now, because I am who I am,
Yes.
When I paint my rocks, I will put a word, like if I had thought about it, now I know, and I will paint more owls. I will put on the bottom, be wise.
Yes.
And painted some mushrooms, and on the back of that rock, I can write grow. So there will be an inspirational message on the back of my rocks now.
That's wonderful. You inspire me as usual, Leslie. About how long does it take you to paint a rock, and what do you use? Do you use acrylic?
I use acrylics, and I've learned to use more water so that you can't see every stroke.
Right.
And I'm teaching myself not to think that I'm painting the Sistine Chapel.
Right.
To be light and cute and frivolous, and I'm working my way there. I drew a lot as a child, so I'm trying to make everything realistic. But I also am doing a different type of rock where I'm using little tiny pine cones, and I glue them on the rock, and then I paint the parts, the branch around it. So it's three-dimensional.
Tiny pine cones, how adorable! So they're more than the rocks themselves are 3D, but you're making 3D on rocks,
right?
Oh, I love that. It has to be really tiny and very much glued, right? To stay.
Well, I clip anyway. I have a technique.
Yeah, of course. So you also write about structure, that we need to create a new structure.
Yes.
And I really lucked out because I found an organization called Vitality Society, which offers numerous exercise classes a week, 3 a day. And I will tell you, and has not only exercise classes like Tai Chi and yoga and Pilates, it's meditation and art classes, singing and songwriting, physical therapy. Anyway, that structures my day, because what I do is I schedule my clients around this structure. And I always, every day, and I don't miss a class, because you get, for $30 a month, you get unlimited classes. So me, with my frugality, well, this is prepaid, I've already paid for it, and the fact that I have to show up, they're not recorded. Because if I had a recording, I would not get around to it. You see, I know how to outsmart myself psychologically, and how to get myself to exercise, because I could no longer go to my exercise classes. And not only that, I bought a bike, which I haven't ridden in many, many years. So, wow. So, Leslie, again, we have about 5 minutes left. So, and I know you'll be coming back on Just Relationships. Tell us what you want us to stay with and remember.
When you were talking about the Vitality Society, and especially getting into like the singing and art, I wrote down the word enrichment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of us right now, we have huge financial issues. And mm-hmm. as much as we were stressed and pressed for time, especially with homeschooling, that sometimes it feels like overload. So
yes,
I would love anyone who's listening to think about the word enrichment and create your own definition of what that mm-hmm. means. Does it mean like locking the bathroom door and soaking in the tub with a glass of wine or a piece of chocolate or something? What is enrichment to you? Is there mm-hmm. something you've had on your mental list of, boy, I've always wanted to do that? Like for me, improv, it's been on my mind for probably the last 10 years.
Yeah, so me too.
When I saw the class, I thought, okay, this is your chance. Don't let it go by. And finding this little 29-acre woods so close to my house. It's a form of enrichment. I have a couple of articles I want to write about a spot in the woods that I call the portal. And in the morning, it's a very dense, dark woods, and there's this tree that fell, and it almost has a whole circle of branches. I step over the big branch, and I look up, and here's this little sort of ceiling branch, and it leads into a field. So I go from the dark side of the portal into the light.
Oh.
And then I can reverse and be in the light, and then head back into the dark. And in my book on grief and loss, I write, were it not for the rain, we would never have flowers.
Mm-hmm.
If it weren't for the dark, we would never see the stars.
Right.
So there's a place for learning in our lives when we feel grief, when we feel lost, and to go into that portal and discover parts of us that we didn't know were there. That's enrichment.
Okay. That's enrichment. And I love the word your portal rather than the rabbit hole.
Yes.
Right? Because the rabbit hole is down the rabbit hole. Uh-oh, scary. But a portal indicates choice. And so how can I enrich myself? How can I nourish myself? And what I say to my clients and students and audiences, I call it radical self-care, especially for women who have been taught to serve others and labeled selfish if they take care of themselves. So it's in tandem, and sometimes we put others first, sometimes we put ourselves first. And I think about it as good nutrition. Maybe over one day you may not have your full complement of nutrition, but hopefully you do over the week. So when it comes to self-care and other care, it is always a balancing act, right? It is always a balancing act. So the question, and what I say to my couples, is what is good for the relationship, for you as individuals, and for the relationship, your coupleship. So not only is what is enriching for me, what is enriching for my family, for my partner, for my friends, and how can we raise the water level, right? How can we raise us all up together in synchronicity? So that's it, enrichment. So I want to have people think about, I want to have you all think about what is nourishment for you, your own personal nourishment, what is nourishment for others, for the people you care about, what is nourishment even for people strangers on the street. I always make a point to smile at people I pass on the street. I think the mask gives us another barrier. So I make a point to smile to soften that barrier. And I'm just loving, by the way, the creativity of people's masks. How many? My sister just sent me a magnificent, Asian mask, silk Asian. I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't even want to wear it. I want to frame it. It's just amazing. So Leslie Charles, renowned author, lesliecharles.com. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer. And if you're curious about the concept of growth and getting to your roots, you can email me at drduffyspencer@gmail.com. Thank you, Leslie Charles. You will come back, yes?
Oh, thank you, Dr. Duffy. Anytime.
Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.